Have you ever noticed how people start acting different the moment you begin to rise? How friends become quiet, how encouragement turns into awkward silence, how support fades into distance? It's not a glitch, it's not bad luck, it's a law of human nature. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this before anyone. In the real world, no one is truly your friend. Not when power, ambition, or success enter the picture, because when those forces show up, the masks fall off. We're taught to believe in friendship like it's sacred. From childhood, we're fed stories of loyalty, brotherhood, unbreakable bonds. But life isn't a storybook, and the higher you climb, the faster the fantasy unravels. Most relationships are built not on truth, but on comfort. And once your success disrupts that comfort, the dynamic changes. You don't have to hurt anyone for them to pull away. Sometimes all it takes is for you to shine a little too brightly. Machiavelli didn't say this to make us bitter. He said it so we'd stop being blind, because in the game of power, whether personal or political, nothing is more dangerous than assuming loyalty where there is only convenience. People may stand beside you today, but ask yourself, would they still be there if standing beside you cost them something? Here's the hard truth. Most people love the version of you that doesn't make them uncomfortable. The version that stays behind, that asks for advice, that doesn't outgrow the circle. But the moment you change, when you begin to grow, to demand more, to think differently, they begin to step back. And what feels like rejection is actually just exposure. You're seeing who they really are. It hurts to realize that not every smile is sincere, that not every shared memory is enough to hold someone close. But there's a strange kind of peace that comes with this awareness. When you stop expecting people to rise with you, you stop being shocked when they don't. And in that space, you begin to build something better than false friendship. You begin to build clarity. And if these words hit somewhere deep, if you felt that shift from closeness to silence, I invite you to stay until the end of this journey. And when it's over, if this truth helped lift the weight off your chest, give it a like, share it with someone who needs it, and comment below. When did you realize that not everyone smiling at you was a friend? Because that moment of clarity, that's not the end of your story. That's the beginning of your freedom. From a young age, we're taught that loyalty is everything, that once someone stands beside you, they always will, that the bonds we form, especially in struggle, are stronger than time, change, or ambition. But Machiavelli would urge caution. He'd tell you that loyalty is not sacred. It's strategic. And more often than not, it's conditional. People are loyal until they're not. Until you outgrow the role they assigned to you, until your success makes their excuses harder to believe, until your glow makes them question their own shadows. It's easy to be loyal when there's nothing to lose. But the moment your rise threatens their sense of identity, loyalty cracks, and what you thought was love becomes silence. The truth is, most loyalty is performance. It's what people wear in public, what they say when it's safe, what they offer when there's no pressure. But under stress, under envy, under competition, it folds. Not with a scream, but with distance. Not with betrayal, but with subtle withdrawal. And you sit there wondering, what did I do? When all you did was evolve. Machiavelli knew this deeply. He believed that alliances, friendships, even families are held together not by emotion alone, but by shared interest. When that interest fades, so does the loyalty. He wasn't telling us to be paranoid. He was telling us to be prepared, to stop assuming that just because someone stood with you in one season, they'll still be there in the next. The hardest part isn't the betrayal, it's the realization that your loyalty was real and theirs wasn't, that you would have fought for them and they wouldn't even flinch for you, that your name vanished from their lips the moment it stopped being convenient. And that realization doesn't just sting, it reshapes how you see the world. But here's the paradox. This pain, this clarity, is a gift. Because once you see through the myth, You stop begging for loyalty and start demanding alignment. You start building relationships based on shared values, not shared history. You stop measuring loyalty by words and start measuring it by presence. So the next time someone fades as you rise, don't chase them. Let them go. Because Machiavelli would tell you, anyone who leaves when your season changes was never built for your future, only for your past. There's something we rarely say out loud. Every friendship has a price, not in money, but in energy, in expectation, in emotional currency. We invest in people. We open ourselves. We give time, support, loyalty. And deep down, we hope it's mutual. But Machiavelli would warn, most friendships are not built on love. They're built on utility. And when that utility fades, so does the connection. This doesn't make people evil. It makes them human. In a world driven by self-preservation, most relationships operate like silent contracts. I'll be there for you, as long as it doesn't cost me too much. The moment your needs grow beyond what they're willing to give, the contract dissolves. Quietly, sometimes without a word, and you're left wondering what went wrong. Friendship at its best can be beautiful, but at its most common, it's fragile. Built on shared routines, mutual benefit, unspoken power balances. When you break those, when you rise too fast, when you want too much, when you evolve beyond the old dynamic, those fragile bonds break. And in their place, you find silence, or worse, resentment. Machiavelli understood this brutal truth. He knew that the appearance of friendship often served as camouflage for self-interest, not because people were malicious, but because survival always comes first. The ones who seem closest to you may be the very ones who are keeping score, and the ones who claim to support you may secretly hope you don't go too far. You'll notice it in the moments that matter. When you fail, they cheer you up, but when you win, they go quiet. Their absence is louder than their support ever was. And that absence teaches you more than any betrayal. It shows you who saw you as an equal and who only felt safe when you were behind them. But this isn't a call to isolate. It's a call to see clearly. When you stop expecting people to be permanent, you stop being devastated when they're not. And in that space, you can finally appreciate the few who stay, not out of need, but out of true connection. If you've ever outgrown a friendship and felt guilty for it, let that guilt go. Growth always costs something. Sometimes it costs the illusion that every bond will survive your evolution. Machiavelli would remind you, don't mourn what fell apart. Honor what it taught you, and walk forward, eyes open. We don't like to admit it, but loyalty often has a shelf life. People stay loyal when it's convenient, when they benefit, when the balance feels fair, when nothing threatens their comfort. But Machiavelli knew, the moment things shift, when your growth becomes a mirror to their stagnation, loyalty begins to rot, quietly, subtly. And if you're not paying attention, you won't notice until it's too late. You'll hear it in their tone, the slight hesitation, the backhanded compliments, the way they smile with their mouth but not their eyes. You'll feel it in their presence, how it becomes less frequent, less warm, more distant, and you'll try to explain it away. You'll blame yourself. You'll chase clarity, but the truth is simple. Their loyalty expired the moment your path stopped serving theirs. Most people don't betray you with cruelty. They betray you with silence, with withdrawal, with absence. Not because they hate you, but because they're choosing themselves. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it forces you to see the brutal truth. Many relationships were never built for forever. They were built for the moment. Machiavelli taught that the wise never anchor their plans to loyalty that hasn't been tested. Because untested loyalty is a fantasy. It's unproven. It exists only in theory, not in fire. And fire is where truth lives. So when the pressure rises, When money, opportunity, or attention enter the room, that's when loyalty reveals itself, not with words, but with actions. It's painful to learn this, especially when it comes from people you would have protected at all costs, people you would have fought for. And yet when it was time to return that energy, they vanished. But pain has a purpose. It sharpens your perception. It clears the fog. It teaches you to love with your eyes open, not with blind hope. If you've ever been left confused by someone's distance, someone's coldness after all you gave them, know this: their loyalty didn't vanish overnight. It faded slowly, and now that it's gone, you're finally free to stop trying to hold together something that was already falling apart. Machiavelli wouldn't tell you to hate them. He'd tell you to thank them, because every false loyalty exposed is one less illusion holding you back, and every person who leaves when your light gets too bright makes room for someone who can stand beside you in full daylight. You've been there, sharing your good news, expecting joy, only to be met with a hollow "that's great" and a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. And suddenly, the air feels heavy, unspoken, uncomfortable. You start to wonder, did I say too much? But the real question is, why can't they celebrate me? Machiavelli knew the answer. People rarely cheer for what reminds them of their own limitations. Your success isn't just a milestone, it's a mirror. And not everyone likes what they see reflected. When you rise, you don't just elevate yourself, you expose what others have avoided. The risks they didn't take, the potential they ignored, the chances they let pass. And instead of feeling inspired, many feel threatened, because your courage makes their comfort look like fear. Some people don't want to see you fail, but they definitely don't want to see you succeed too much. Especially if your success came from the same starting point as theirs. It disrupts the narrative. It challenges the belief that things are just hard or unfair. And so, rather than confront their own passivity, they quietly retreat from your victory. Machiavelli would remind us that the game of status is not always played out loud. It's often a silent war of comparison. Every gain you make adjusts the unspoken hierarchy. And if someone felt superior to you, your success doesn't just lift you, it lowers them. Not because of facts, but because of ego. And ego is delicate. It bruises easily. You'll recognize these moments by how people show up or don't. They miss the celebration. They change the subject. They offer subtle jabs dressed as jokes. Don't forget us when you're famous. Wow, must be nice. Those aren't compliments, they're warnings, telling you they've started to see you differently, maybe even as a threat. But this is not a sign to shrink, it's a sign to shift, to accept that not everyone is built to grow with you. Some people were only ever meant to know the version of you that made them feel secure. And when you start stepping into your power, they start stepping away. Let them, because the right people won't just clap when you win, they'll help you strategize the next move. They'll push you higher. They won't see your light as a threat, but as a fire they're proud to stand beside. Machiavelli would say, don't apologize for evolving. Don't dim yourself to preserve old dynamics. Because anyone who's meant to walk with you won't be intimidated by your strength. They'll be inspired by it. Clarity is a gift, but a heavy one. When you begin to see things as they truly are, not as you wish them to be, a strange silence sets in. It's not that the world changes, it's that your lens does, and suddenly conversations feel hollow. Old jokes aren't funny, familiar faces don't feel so familiar. You're not angry, you're just awake. And that awakening often brings isolation. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He knew that once you strip away the illusions about people, about power, about loyalty, you start walking a lonelier path. Not because you push people away, but because truth creates distance. The more clearly you see, the less you tolerate noise, pretending, masks, small talk that hides real tension. You're not bitter, You're just tired of playing games no one admits they're playing. The hardest part isn't losing people. It's realizing they were never really close to begin with. You just didn't see it. You filled in the gaps with hope. You mistook convenience for connection. But now, with clarity, you can't unsee what's been revealed. And that truth, while liberating, also builds walls. People sense when you see through them. They get uncomfortable, defensive. They call you cold, distant, too serious. But what they're really saying is, I miss the version of you that didn't notice my contradictions. In the version that let things slide, that ignored the inconsistencies, that didn't question the loyalty, the motives, the silence. Clarity doesn't make you cruel, it makes you precise. You stop explaining yourself. You stop entertaining what doesn't feel right. You start trusting your gut, even when it's inconvenient. And in a world that rewards blind loyalty and surface-level harmony, that makes you look like a rebel. But you're not rebelling. You're evolving. And evolution always costs something. Sometimes it costs your comfort, sometimes your community. But Machiavelli would argue, what you gain in exchange is far more valuable: self-possession, sovereignty, the ability to move through life with your eyes open and your power intact. If you're feeling the weight of this clarity, know this: you're not broken. You're just becoming sharp, focused, untouchable in ways others can't yet understand. And while the path may be quieter now, it's also more honest. Machiavelli might say, let them misunderstand you, let them whisper, because while they cling to illusions, you're building something real. On ground, no betrayal can shake. Power doesn't corrupt. It uncovers. That's what Machiavelli knew long before it became a cliché. Give someone influence, give them advantage, give them even a little control. And who they really are begins to rise to the surface. Some become arrogant, others generous. Some become protectors, others turn predatory. Power doesn't change people, it sets them free from pretending. When someone gains power, they no longer need to filter their intentions. They don't have to appease or perform. They don't have to play nice to survive. So they stop. And the version of them that was hidden under politeness, under insecurity, under fear, that version steps forward. Sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it's monstrous. You'll see it when people get promoted, when they gain followers, when they get attention or wealth or admiration. Watch how they treat people who can't give them anything. Watch how they respond to disagreement, to challenge, to limits. Power doesn't test their character, it displays it, loud and clear. But here's the part we don't like to admit. The same thing happens to us. When we gain power, whether in relationships, work, or status, we're also revealed. Our tendencies, our insecurities, our hidden hunger. Power gives us room to act on impulses we previously kept in check, and unless we're conscious, we can become what we once judged in others. That's why Machiavelli warned not only about power in others, but about the seduction of power in ourselves. He knew it wasn't just a tool, it was a mirror. And if you look into that mirror without honesty, you'll start justifying things you once swore you'd never do. True strength isn't found in gaining power, it's found in handling it with restraint, in using it to protect rather than dominate, to uplift rather than diminish. And that's rare, because restraint doesn't get applause. Humility doesn't trend. But those who master power instead of being mastered by it, those are the ones who lead with lasting influence. So if power has entered your life, if people now listen to your voice, follow your decisions, depend on your presence, don't just celebrate it. Reflect on it. Ask, what is this revealing about me? And be bold enough to answer truthfully, because Machiavelli wouldn't just ask whether you can gain power. He'd ask whether you can hold it without losing yourself in the process. Betrayal cuts deeper than most pain, not just because of what happens, but because of who does it. Strangers can't betray you, only the people you trusted. the ones you defended, the ones you would have fought for. Only they can land the kind of blow that takes your breath away. Machiavelli understood this. He knew that the closer the hand, the sharper the knife. It's not just the loss of the person, it's the loss of the story you told yourself about them, the belief that you were safe with them, that you mattered, that the bond was real. When that crumbles, it's not just heartbreak, it's disorientation. You question your memory, your judgment, your intuition. How didn't I see this coming? Becomes the soundtrack in your head. But here's the truth. Betrayal often doesn't look like betrayal at first. It looks like distance, like hesitation, like convenient forgetfulness. Most people don't stab you, they let you bleed slowly, through silence, through avoidance, through subtle shifts in energy. And that's what makes it so hard to detect and so hard to heal from. Machiavelli didn't tell us to stop trusting entirely. He told us to understand that even the most loyal allies can switch sides when fear or ambition takes over. Because most people are not guided by principle, they're guided by pressure, by what protects them, by what benefits them. And when you become a liability, even unintentionally, they'll choose themselves. But betrayal isn't just an act, it's a lesson. It teaches you what your boundaries should have been. It teaches you what signals you missed. And most importantly, it teaches you that loyalty must be earned continually, not assumed. That just because someone once showed up for you doesn't mean they always will. And yet, the pain of betrayal has a strange power. It forces growth, it clears illusions, it demands strength. The people who've been betrayed and survived, they walk differently, slower, more alert. Not bitter, but wiser. Not closed, but selective. Their energy doesn't chase, it attracts. Because they've learned, not everyone deserves access. So if you've been betrayed, don't rush to forgive just to look like the bigger person. Sit with the pain. Learn from it. Let it change your standards, not your heart. Because as Machiavelli would say, the betrayal wasn't your failure, it was their revelation. And now that you've seen it for what it is, you're no longer bound by the illusion. You're free. Loyalty is one of the most used and most misunderstood words we throw around. People demand it, post about it, even weaponize it. But what does it actually mean? Machiavelli saw loyalty not as blind allegiance, but as a dynamic exchange of respect, benefit, and alignment. Not eternal, not unconditional, but earned and sustained, through clarity, not fantasy. True loyalty isn't tested when everything is going well. It's tested when things fall apart, when your name is dragged, when you have nothing to offer, when choosing you carries a cost. That's when loyalty speaks, not through words, but through presence, through action, through silence that protects, not avoids. Many people confuse loyalty with obligation. They think if you've been friends for years, that guarantees loyalty. But time isn't proof, behavior is. Loyalty is what someone does when no one's watching, when they have every reason to walk away, but they choose to stay. Not because you're perfect, but because they see your worth even when the world forgets it. Machiavelli didn't trust loyalty that hadn't been tested by pressure. He knew that political alliances and personal ties alike were strong only as long as mutual interest existed. That's not pessimism, it's reality. And understanding this frees you from naive expectations. You stop handing out your loyalty like candy. You start watching, listening, not to what people say, but to what they do when it counts. Real loyalty also isn't silent complicity. It challenges you when you stray. It calls you out when you're slipping, not to shame you, but to keep you aligned with who you say you are. That kind of loyalty is rare, because it takes courage to tell the truth to someone you care about, especially when that truth could cost you the relationship. So how do you know who's truly loyal? Look at who shows up when you're inconvenient, who defends you in rooms you're not in, who gives without keeping score, who holds your confidence when it would be easier to gossip. And ask yourself, are you that kind of person for anyone? Because loyalty isn't something you demand, it's something you live. It's a standard you embody. And once you do, you attract others who live by that code. Not many, but enough. Machiavelli would remind us, the game of power is always shifting, but your integrity doesn't have to. You may walk alone at times, but when real loyalty finds you, it becomes the rarest and most unshakable bond you can have. Everyone wants to rise until they realize what it costs. Success, growth, clarity, they don't just change your circumstances, they change your surroundings, they change your relationships, they change how people look at you and how you look at them. And one of the most painful truths of rising is this: the higher you climb, the lonelier it gets. Machiavelli knew that ascent isolates, not because you push people away, but because the altitude demands focus. It reveals who was there for the journey and who was there for the scenery. People start falling off, some by choice, some by quiet distance, some by bitter resentment they never admit. And what hurts isn't their exit, it's realizing how conditional their presence always was. At the bottom, you were familiar, safe, predictable. They knew their place in your life. But when you grow, when you evolve, when you rise, they no longer know how to stand beside you. So they stand back. Or worse, they sabotage. Not because you've wronged them, but because your becoming reminds them of what they refuse to become. You'll notice this when your wins are met with silence, when your effort is downplayed, when people joke more, compliment less, and slowly fade. Don't panic, don't shrink. This isn't a crisis, it's a cleansing. The higher you rise, the less weight you can carry. And sometimes that weight looks like friendships you've outgrown. Machiavelli would tell you, don't fight the loneliness of rising, study it. Let it teach you what mattered for real. Who stayed for you, not just for access. Who celebrated your elevation instead of fearing it. Who stayed grounded while you took flight. Because the people who matter, the ones who align with your values, your path, your evolution, won't feel threatened by your altitude. They'll match it. Or they'll root for it from wherever they are without asking you to come back down. So if you're in that space right now, rising, shedding, grieving quietly the closeness that once was, know this: you're not broken, you're not arrogant, you're not cold, you're just growing. And growth has always been misunderstood. Machiavelli wouldn't ask you to apologize for outgrowing people. He'd ask you to honor the solitude, refine your circle, and keep moving, because the mountain never apologizes for leaving the valley behind. The hardest skill in a ruthless world isn't winning. It's protecting your mind without turning your heart to stone. After betrayal, rejection, silence, and the slow deaths of once close bonds, the temptation is strong. Build walls, stop trusting, feel less. But Machiavelli would offer a different strategy, one of clarity, not coldness, one that sharpens the mind without hardening the soul. Pain teaches you to see, but you get to decide what kind of person you become after you've seen too much. Some people let pain turn them bitter, suspicious, unreachable, but the strong learn to carry wisdom in one hand and compassion in the other. They don't ignore reality, they just refuse to let it poison their identity. Protecting your mind starts with boundaries, emotional ones, time boundaries, mental filters. You learn to stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop expecting depth from shallow places. You become slow to give access, but never cruel in your distance. That's strength, not arrogance. At the same time, you don't let the world make you numb. You still feel, you still love, you still hope, but you do it with discernment. You open your heart with intention, not desperation. And that shift, subtle but powerful, changes everything. Machiavelli believed in studying human behavior with precision. He knew we are complex, capable of both loyalty and betrayal, kindness and cruelty. So his advice wasn't to reject people, but to observe them. Not to close your heart, but to guard your mind. Because once you master that balance, you stop being easy to break. There's no honor in being overly open with those who haven't earned it. But there's no strength in being so guarded that nothing real can reach you. The goal isn't to shut down, it's to become selective. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every person deserves a front row seat in your life. And here's the paradox. When you protect your mind and keep your heart alive, you become magnetic. People sense the difference. You radiate groundedness. You command quiet respect. Not because you demand it, but because you embody it. So if you've been walking the line between feeling too much and feeling nothing, let this be your reminder. You don't have to choose one extreme. You can be awake and still be kind. You can be wise and still be open. That's not weakness, that's mastery. Machiavelli might say, let your strategy protect your peace, but let your humanity preserve your soul. In the end, what separates those who thrive from those who break is lucidity. Not charm, not popularity, not brute strength, but the ability to see the world as it is, without illusions, without flattery, without the need to pretend. Machiavelli understood this. He knew that the clearest mind, not the loudest voice, wins the longest game. Lucidity is not about cynicism. It's not about expecting the worst in everyone. It's about recognizing patterns, seeing beyond words, understanding motive beneath action. When you're lucid, you don't get caught off guard. You don't misplace your trust. You don't fall for empty promises or smile at disguised threats. You move strategically, not reactively. You observe, you calculate, you decide from awareness, not from impulse. And while others are swept away by emotion, by praise, by panic, you remain centered, still. Powerful not because you force, but because you see. And here's what makes lucidity rare. It's uncomfortable. It strips away the comfort of fantasy. It forces you to admit that some people you love don't love you back, that some opportunities you wanted were traps, that some dreams you chased were distractions, but in exchange, it gives you peace, quiet, freedom. You stop begging the world to be fair. You start preparing for what it is, and ironically, that's when things begin to shift. Because when you no longer cling to illusions, you stop wasting time. You stop arguing with reality. And that's where real power begins. Lucidity makes you dangerous in the best way. Not aggressive, not manipulative, but untouchable. Because you don't need approval to feel grounded. You don't need constant company to feel complete. You don't chase because you're clear. You don't fold because you're steady. You don't fall because your vision holds you up. So if you've walked through this entire journey, through betrayal, isolation, success, silence, power, and growth, and you've begun to feel this clarity rise inside you, honor it, feed it, refine it, because lucidity is not a destination, it's a discipline. One that sets you free again and again every day. And if this message resonated with you, if you felt seen, challenged, or understood, let this be your moment to respond. Give this video a like, share it with someone walking their own silent path, and comment below what truth finally set you free. Because this is more than content. This is clarity, and clarity is a revolution of the soul.